What if the weakness you feel was never truly yours? What if it was a lie, dressed in politeness, stitched into your smile, handed down by those too afraid to face their own fire? You were taught that peace means pleasing, that silence means safety, that conflict is chaos, and you must never touch it. But here's the truth they never dared whisper: your fear of conflict is not peace. It's the leash around your throat. It's the weight on your chest when you say yes, but mean no. It's the hand over your mouth when your soul is screaming to rise. You weren't born afraid. You were taught to shrink. To fit into the mold. To stay soft when the world demanded steel. But the soul doesn't forget. It burns quietly, waiting for you to stop betraying yourself. Because freedom, true, untamed, unapologetic freedom, doesn't come through avoiding war. It comes when you master the battlefield within. And that battle begins here, with two truths you must engrave into your bones: mental alchemy, inner discipline. These are not trends, they are ancient, brutal, sacred. Mental alchemy is the ability to feel everything, and still choose who you become, not to suppress, not to escape, but to take the molten chaos of emotion and forge it into precision, into power, into purpose. Your mind is a forge. Every thought you allow, every belief you accept, becomes the metal you wear into the world. If you don't shape it, someone else will. They already have. And now you sit there, wondering why your strength feels fake, why your smile feels like armor you didn't build, why your silence is eating you alive. It's because you never claimed the forge. You've let others cast your blade. But listen, it's not too late. Because discipline is the fire that makes transformation real. Not the discipline they sold you, the fake kind built on shame and punishment. No. I'm talking about the warrior's discipline. The quiet, relentless decision to rise every day and choose your thoughts like weapons. To train your emotions like wild horses. To command your presence like a general on sacred ground. Inner discipline is the moment you say, I will no longer be owned by fear. I will no longer be ruled by shame. I will master my reactions. I will govern my reality. And it's not a loud promise. It's not fireworks. It's subtle, still, and deadly powerful. Because once you reclaim this, no insult can shatter you. No rejection can unmake you. No silence can suffocate you. You stop begging for peace, and you start creating it, from the inside out. But let me tell you something they won't. They'll call you selfish for it, cold, arrogant, distant. They'll say you've changed, and you have. Because when you stop being afraid to be in conflict, you become dangerous, not to the world, but to the illusions that once owned you. You become immune to manipulation. You no longer bow to guilt. You no longer break when they withhold love. Because you've stopped chasing the love that costs you your soul. And in that moment, you are free. But here's the catch: this freedom has a price. And most never pay it. Because it's not comfort. It's not approval. It's not praise. The price is solitude. The price is discomfort. The price is walking alone through the fire, while everyone else stays asleep in the cold. You'll cry. You'll doubt. You'll be tempted to go back to the mask. But the moment you feel that pull, remember this: you were not born to be palatable. You were not born to be tame. You were born to be whole. And wholeness requires conflict. The kind that burns falsehood, the kind that fractures masks, the kind that makes you bleed truth. Every time you avoid it, you betray your evolution. Every time you shrink, you delay your freedom. Every time you say, it's fine, when it isn't, you lock the cage tighter. You must become the kind of person who no longer fears discomfort, because you've turned it into a sword. That's mental alchemy. You must become the kind of person who no longer waits for peace to come from others, because you carry it in your breath, in your gaze, in your choices. That's inner discipline. And here's what they'll never tell you: the strongest people you've ever met, they didn't get there through ease. They didn't get there by avoiding conflict. They got there by walking into it, with open eyes and a steady heart. They turned chaos into character. They turned rage into reason. They turn pain into purpose. And you're not broken. You're just untrained. Your power is asleep. Your fire is buried. But it's still there. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about unbecoming what the world forced you to be. So I ask you, what would happen if you stopped being afraid to be disliked? If you stopped being afraid to lose people who only loved your silence? If you stopped being afraid to disrupt the peace that was built on your suffering? You'd rise. You'd rebuild. You'd return to yourself. This transformation won't wait for your permission. It begins when you're finally done being broken. The fire inside you was never loud. It was never chaos, never noise, never madness. It was quiet. A still, glowing ember beneath the ashes of your betrayals, waiting for you to stop apologizing for your own existence. You were not meant to smother that fire. You were meant to rise from it. But to rise, you must turn inward, not to escape, but to reclaim. This is where the war becomes sacred. This is where shadow work begins. Not the kind that drowns you in guilt, not the kind that asks you to hate the parts you don't understand, but the kind that says, look, feel, forgive, and take back the pieces. Because your shadow is not your enemy. It's the part of you that refused to die when the world told you to be small. It holds your rage, not to destroy, but to protect. It holds your sorrow, not to sink, but to cleanse. It holds your wildness, not to rebel, but to remember. Most people run from it. They numb. They distract. They point fingers at the world. But you are not most people. You came here to master the unseen. And to do that, you must stand in front of the mirror, not to admire yourself, but to confront. Confront the version of you who stayed quiet to survive. Confront the wounds you inherited but never chose. Confront the silence that became your prison. Feel it, not to drown, but to breathe through it. Take slow, deep breaths. In through your nose, like you're inhaling strength. Out through your mouth, like you're releasing everything that never belonged to you. This is not just breath. It's a ritual. A signal to your nervous system that you are safe now. Safe to feel. Safe to heal. Safe to become. Do this when the anxiety tightens your chest. Do this when old memories try to pull you under. Do this when you feel like burning it all down just to feel alive again. And as you breathe, begin to visualize. Close your eyes. See yourself walking into a forge. Your mind is the fire. Your emotions, molten metal. You are the blacksmith now. And no longer afraid of your anger. And no longer ashamed of your needs. And no longer hiding from your truth. You take that red-hot chaos and shape it into armor. Not to close yourself off, but to carry yourself with dignity. You don't suppress the shadow. You give it a role. You honor its strength. You tame its fire. This is emotional alchemy. The moment when shame becomes sovereignty. When heartbreak becomes clarity, when fear becomes fuel, and you may ask, how do I know it's working? You'll know when the same people who used to control your emotions can no longer find the switch. You'll know when the insults that once pierced you now fall like ash from a dying flame. You'll know when you feel the chaos rise inside you, but choose to breathe, not because you're weak, but because you've learned the language of stillness. That's not suppression. That's mastery. And don't you dare let the world shame you for that. Because they will. They'll say, you've changed. They'll say, you used to be so kind. They'll say, what happened to you? Here's what happened. You stopped bleeding for people who never knew how to hold you. You stopped dimming your fire to keep others warm. You stopped avoiding conflict. Because you realize that true peace can only be forged through the furnace of honesty. You're not broken. You're remembering. You're remembering what Marcus Aurelius knew, what Seneca whispered through time, what every warrior monk, every battle-tested soul, every reformed exile once discovered, that the quiet fire inside you is not to be feared. It is to be honored. Let me tell you a story. There was a Japanese samurai named Miyamoto Musashi. He lived in the 1600s. A master of the sword, undefeated in over 60 duels. But his greatest power was not his blade. It was his mind. Musashi once said, "Do nothing which is of no use." It wasn't about action. It was about attention. He did not waste energy on arguments that drained him. He did not seek conflict for ego, but neither did he avoid it when it came. He faced life like a mirror, unflinching, clear, balanced. That's what shadow work gives you. Not just healing, but precision. Not just clarity, but leverage. You stop reacting, you start responding, and in those responses you shape your world. One breath, one choice, one unspoken boundary at a time, and maybe you've hit rock bottom. Maybe you feel hollow, numb, betrayed, forgotten. Good. That's where the real work begins. Because when you have nothing left to lose, you finally stop living for approval. You finally stop running from yourself. And in that stillness, in that void, you find the ember. You blow on it, gently, fiercely, until it roars, not to burn others, but to illuminate who you've always been. You're not just learning skills. You're remembering a power you always had. And once you reclaim it, you never forget who you are again. There's a moment when the storm rages, but you don't flinch. The old you would have snapped, cried, lashed out, apologized for feeling too much. But now, you just breathe, not out of numbness, but because you've become the storm's master. This is the quiet power no one teaches: self-control, not repression, not fake smiles, not swallowing rage and calling it maturity. Real self-control is sacred. It's the fortress you build inside your soul, where chaos knocks, and you decide whether it enters. It's the art of standing still while the world tries to spin you like a puppet. It's walking away, not because you're afraid to fight, but because some battles aren't worth your silence breaking. Understand this: every betrayal, every setback, every insult is a test, not of your strength to fight, but of your strength to not need to. There's no medal for screaming louder. There's no prize for proving a point to people addicted to misunderstanding you. Freedom doesn't come when you win arguments. It comes when you no longer need them. Because you've built something deeper, a fortress made of presence, breath, and boundaries. That fortress begins the day you realize you do not owe your energy to chaos. You do not owe explanations to those who twist your truth. You do not owe your softness to those who see it as weakness. Your silence isn't submission. It's a weapon, but not one that wounds others. It shields your mind. It protects your peace. It preserves your direction. When someone lies about you, you don't flinch, because the truth doesn't need panic to survive. When someone ghosts you, you don't chase, because absence reveals more than words ever could. When someone tries to manipulate you with guilt, you just look at them, calm, unmoved, because your emotions are yours now. You've stopped giving them away like coins to beggars. That's what mastery feels like. And yes, it's lonely at first, because most people are slaves to reaction. They confuse passion with panic, strength with control, and love with obedience. But you're not here for most people. You're here for you. And that means developing the tools that make you unshakable. Start with this: journaling, not to vent, but to observe. To see your mind on paper. To witness your inner world without judgment. This is not weakness. It's mental training. Because if you don't understand your own patterns, someone else will use them against you. Second, reframing thoughts. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are the meaning you assign to it. Every time you catch a thought that says, "I'm not enough," you grab it by the throat and say, "That's not my voice." That's your programming. And you're the reprogrammer now. Third, breath control. Every storm starts in the body. When you slow your breath, you slow time. You widen the gap between impulse and choice. You reclaim the throne. And finally, physical discipline. Not for aesthetics, not for validation, but because when you control your body, your mind follows. Every rep, every cold shower, every early rise is a reminder: I am in command. I do hard things. I do not wait for motivation. I move from will. These tools, they are not hacks. They are not trends. They are anchors. Because when the world tries to tear you apart, you stay grounded. You don't respond to every insult. You don't explain your boundaries like an apology. You don't fear being alone. Because you're not alone. You've built you, the most loyal, present, disciplined ally you'll ever know. And suddenly, you stop looking for validation. You stop checking your phone like it's a lifeline. You stop needing applause to feel alive. Because you've become your own audience. You look in the mirror and you don't see shame. You don't see brokenness. You see a fortress forged in fire and silence. A man. A woman. A warrior. Not perfect, but present. Not invincible, but untouchable where it counts. You'll still feel things. You'll still bleed. You'll still have nights where doubt whispers in the dark. But you'll choose your response. And that, my friend, is power no one can give you, and no one can take away. The world will keep testing you. People will push. Buttons will be pressed. The past will try to sneak back in. But the voices that once controlled you fall silent, because you don't need their permission anymore. You don't fear conflict. You don't avoid truth. You don't bend to belong. You stand, and that stillness, that sovereignty, is what makes you unstoppable.